Now is the chairperson of the South African Communist Party, Dr. Blade Nzimande, a party that Pravin Gordhan belonged to.
Yes. Thanks very much, Vuyo, and to your viewers and listeners. Indeed, it is a sad moment in many respects, that we've come to say goodbye to Comrade PG, as we called him. Yet, at the same time, I think that painful as it is, we must comfort ourselves by saying, actually, he ran his race, and quite successfully, no matter what the detractors are saying. Pravin, I call them as someone who belongs to a very particular and special generation, which revived mass struggles inside the country after the apartheid regime had thought it had defeated us with the Rivonia arrest of the early 1960s. They managed in the 70s, together with the workers' struggles, to begin to lay a foundation for reviving mass and effective opposition against apartheid. Mass struggles that ultimately were a key component in defeating the apartheid regime, together with the other pillars of the struggle at the time, the mass struggle, international isolation of apartheid, as well as the armed struggle and underground. And Comrade Pravin, interestingly, was a very sleek underground operator. He was from the 70s in the underground of the movement, both the ANC and the SACP. It's very interesting that when I was recruited into the SACP underground, late as it was, 1989, one of the tasks, I always tell him, I'm still going to come to you, I was given was that I must go and meet Comrade Pravin by Comrade Nzimande, who is late now. And when I said to him, why should I go and meet Comrade Pravin, he said, he will tell you why. I learned later that, of course, he was already in some of the networks. In fact, was in a key unit and also slightly higher level in the underground structures of the SACP. Comrade Pravin also, we must remember him, for a period that we don't talk much about it. Maybe we must blame ourselves as government, as the movement, for not telling our history properly. Because having played this huge role in the struggle against apartheid, he was also very central in the negotiations, negotiating the transition. He played a crucial role in CODESA and in the setting up, if you will remember, of the interim government and the interim constitution and the transitional structures, to put it correctly, at that time, and was a smart negotiator. Pravin had the skill of, on difficult issues, is chairing a meeting of negotiations, would drag the meeting until 2, 3 a.m. Then at that time, pounces and summarizes when half the people are dozing off, and so on, and say, yeah, this is the summary now. This is what we've actually agreed. And in many respects, some people will say, but we can't remember agreeing to this. No. At 2:30, when I was summarizing, this is what we had done. Very smart, But that's also an illustration of wanting to move things forward, Not as a scallum, but just to move things forward, to say to people, you have to be awake, we are doing very serious things. That's a period we are hardly ever talking about, by the way, the one of the transition. I must say, by the way, personally, some people will criticize me. I think it's very upset. We should be ashamed as a country that a place like the World Trade Center in Ekurhuleni has been turned into a gambling den. And there's hardly anything that actually recognizes some of the very important things. We agreed on the interim constitution there. We agreed on transition structures there. And we should actually be telling that history as well. I happen to know because I was also part of a delegate of the SACP in those negotiations, which the SACP delegation was formally led by Comrade Krisani, but on a day-to-day basis it was led by Joe Slovo at the time.
But was he was a member of the Communist Party, yes. But was he as dyed in the wool Comey as some of you at least appear to be?
Look, Comrade Pravin, in his entire life, that I can vouch for, was always guided by what we call dialectical and historical materialism, Marxism. That was his way. Very sophisticated as a strategy, but also very practical as a tactician, able to adjust to changing conditions very quickly. In that way, to me, the fact that he was still guided by that was something that is very important. Of course, sometimes as communists we operate in terrains where it's not easy just to go public as I do, that I am a communist, I serve in the leading structures of the South African Communist Party. Interestingly enough, even now when we would have discussions with Comrade Pravin, even where the party is involved, like on the SAA matter, the Communist Party was very involved in trying to save SAA as a public entity. And
do you think it did well then?
It did okay, insofar as making sure that we try by all means that the state, firstly, that we don't dissolve SAA. They were very powerful.
Well, unfortunately, problems with that feed there. We do expect Vuyo Mvoko to continue that conversation with Blade Nzimande, of course, Minister in the government himself for many years, in just a moment. Sorry about that. We will, of course, have a lot more live coverage for you of the memorial of the funeral of Pravin Gordhan. In fact, I think we're back now with Vuyo Mvoko. Vuyo, sorry about that. You're talking to Dr. Blade Nzimande.
President of Cabinet that was dealing with the SAA. We agreed that the state on its own will not be able to carry SAA over. But we don't want state ownership to be out. So we do need a strategic partner. For us as the Communist Party, that was a compromise, but a tactical compromise. That's not selling the principle that we want the state to continue playing a principal role.
And you're not saying this because there are other people who think, this is all revisionism. You never took that position, or you never said that about him. But now that he has passed on, you want the most dignified tribute, minus some of the things you may have been uncomfortable or even disagreed vehemently with him on.
Look, all of us have got weaknesses as leaders, as people, as human beings. Pravin would be the last one to claim that he was perfect in everything. But in whatever he was doing, he gave it all. We are not saying this because we are now trying to make his name look good. I'm telling you the honest truth, that the SAA thing was very difficult because as a result, mainly, by the way, of state capture, our SOEs were hollowed out, basically hollowed out. There was virtually nothing in SAA. Transnet was in trouble, as you know. Denel, our intellectual property, was stolen by the Guptas. The Guptas, by the way, were very central in actually stealing and hollowing out. So it wasn't an easy walk in the park. You couldn't just come with an ideological position that mechanically translates into particular outcomes without taking into account those realities. Pravin, that's why he also hated state capture so much, because in the end, he fought state capture in SARS, he fought state capture when he was Minister of Finance. Little did he know that the president is going to say, go now and be in charge of the state-owned enterprises, which have been hollowed out by those who were stealing. And that was treason, by the way, as I've said before, this thing of state capture. So he tried his best to actually do what could be done to actually save the state-owned enterprises. Much as they are in problem and so on, they haven't been sold, which is what we stand for as the South African Communist Party.
Dr. Blade Nzimande, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. The chairperson of the South African Communist Party, paying his tribute to the late Pravin Gordhan.